You were not born to be a prisoner of your own mind. You were not designed to live on autopilot, reacting to every distraction, every opinion, every fear that flashes across your screen or your soul. You were born to command, to direct, to choose. But somewhere along the way, you forgot. You let the noise get louder than your own voice. You let the world convince you that your value is measured in likes, in followers, in validation from people who don't even know your name. You let fear masquerade as logic. You let comfort disguise itself as peace. And now you're stuck. But listen closely, you were not stuck because you lack potential. You were stuck because you were attached to things that do not serve you. You are attached to outcomes, to identities, to expectations, to stories that were never yours to carry. And the only way forward is to detach, not from life, not from purpose, but from everything that controls you, because freedom is not found in addition, it is found in subtraction, in letting go, in releasing the grip of what no longer aligns with who you are becoming. So ask yourself, what am I holding on to that is holding me back? What beliefs, what habits, what fears? Because until you answer that question and act on it, you will remain a prisoner of your own making, but the key is in your hand. The door is unlocked. All that's left is to walk through. You were never meant to live according to someone else's script. You were born to write your own, in bold strokes, in untamed chapters, in full volume. But how can you write your story when you're still chained to theirs? Every opinion you absorb without question, every fear you inherit, every should that's not aligned with your deepest truth, that's a weight, and those weights, they collect. They don't just sit quietly in the background. They pull you down, they mute your instincts. They blur your clarity. They cloud your vision. Look back through history, the ones who rose, the ones who built empires from dust, who carved legacy into the face of time. They weren't the ones who said yes to everything. They were the ones who said no to distractions, no to conformity, no to the pressure to be palatable. Henry Ford was told his vision was impossible, that the masses didn't need a motor car. He didn't argue. Walt Disney, he didn't spiral. Created a world, Lincoln F., but he detached from failure, because that's the power of detachment, not escape, not avoidance, but a conscious refusal to be ruled by the forces that want to tame you. Detach from the lie that your worth is conditional. Detach from the voice that says, "Who do you think you are?" Because that voice isn't your truth. It's an echo of someone else's limitation, projected onto you. You are not here to dim. You are here to decide. You are here to reclaim, and to reclaim your life, you must first reclaim your attention. Your focus is the most valuable currency you own, and every time you give it away to chaos, to comparison, to meaningless scrolling or compulsive worry, you bankrupt your potential. This world is not lacking in opportunity, it is drowning in noise, and until you detach from the noise, you will never hear your own calling clearly. Detachment is an act of power. It is the decision to center your mind in a world designed to distract it. It is not indifference, it is alignment. It is the courage to say, I will not be moved by every wind. I will not give control of my mind to anything outside my purpose. I will build, regardless of the storm. And that clarity, that grounded, unstoppable clarity, is where your transformation begins. Clarity is not found in the chaos, it is forged in the silence, and silence is something the modern world will never hand you. You must claim it, because in silence, you remember who you are beneath the programming. In silence, your real voice returns. And that voice does not whisper, it commands. Detach from the compulsion to always be busy. Productivity is not the same as progress. Being in motion does not mean you are moving forward. You can spend years sprinting in circles if you're chasing things that don't align with your purpose. But when you detach from the race to impress, when you detach from the anxiety of validation, you give yourself room to breathe, and in that breath, direction comes. You start asking, not what will make me look successful, but what will make me feel fulfilled. Not what path is safest, but what path is mine. That is where your life begins. Not when you arrive somewhere the world claps for, but when you return to the place inside you that always knew. Detachment is also about mastery, because mastery demands focus, and focus cannot survive in chains. If your mind is bound by fear, you will never act boldly. If it is bound by resentment, you will never act freely. If it is bound by the past, you will never move into the future with power. You must cut the cords, let go of the version of you that was built to survive a season you've already outgrown. Let go of the timeline that says success must happen on anyone else's clock. Let go of the fear that if you don't control everything, everything will fall apart. That fear is a liar. Control is not the same as power. Control is brittle, fragile, reactive. Power is calm, power is centered, power is the result of knowing. I don't need to cling to anything, because what's real for me cannot be taken. What's mine will meet me at the level of my readiness, and my readiness comes from one thing: alignment. Detach from what isn't true, detach from what isn't yours, detach from what doesn't elevate your future, not with bitterness, not with violence, but with clarity, because when you let go of what's draining you, you make space for what's meant for you, you start to see the difference between what you can do and what you're called to do. You stop answering every invitation just because it's offered. You stop begging for peace in places that only ever taught you war. This is the power of detachment. It is the path to internal freedom, and internal freedom is the only kind that lasts. You can chase wealth, status, applause, but if you are still shackled inside, nothing outside will ever be enough. So cut the chains, one by one, name them. Face them. Release them, and then, finally, stand up, without apology, and build. Because the world does not need another person lost in imitation, it needs someone bold enough to be uncontrolled. And when you are uncontrolled, you become unshakable. When you no longer bow to fear, when you no longer beg for permission, you begin to walk differently, not arrogantly, but rooted. Certain, because you are no longer being moved by what moves everyone else, you are moved by purpose, pulled by vision, and powered by something the world didn't give you, and therefore, can never take away. This is the edge most never reach, because it demands a price, the price of comfort, conformity, and illusion. Detachment is not escape, it is not running from life, it's stepping into it without armor that doesn't belong to you. It's peeling off layers that were never yours. The expectations, the inherited fears, the noise that says, be like them, not like you. But you were never meant to blend in, you were meant to wake up, to see clearly, to choose boldly. You were meant to detach not from life, but from limitation, and in doing so, you finally begin to create from a different frequency, not desperation, not comparison, but conviction. This is where wealth begins, not in your bank account, but in your mindset, because what you think about all day, you build. What you obsess over, you attract. What you bell, you become. Detach from scarcity, detach from the story that says there's not enough time, opportunity, success. That's the lie that keeps people small. There is abundance everywhere, but you must tune yourself to it, and you can't do that when your thoughts are imprisoned by doubt. Look at every empire ever built, it began in the unseen. Edison, Ford, Carnegie, they didn't inherit their greatness, they detached from the rules that said you can't, and they rewrote them. They believed in the invisible long enough to make it inevitable. That's what you must do. Because wealth is not a reward for playing it safe, it's a reflection of how deep your roots run in belief, and belief can't grow in a mind filled with weeds. So cut them out, every limiting belief, every voice that says you're too late, you're too much, you're not enough. Detach from the lie that says you need proof before you can move. No, you move, and then you create the proof, you act, and then you earn the evidence. This is the path of builders, of leaders, of legends. They didn't wait for conditions to be perfect, they decided and then adapted, they failed and then refined, they were misunderstood, and still, they pressed on, because once you detach from the need to be understood, you are finally free to be undeniable. Let them misunderstand, let them doubt, let them mock, because while they stay stuck in the illusion, you're building something real, and one day, when the dust settles, when the noise fades, they'll look up and see the world you built from the silence, and they'll call it genius, they'll call it luck, but you'll know it was simply the result of doing what they were too afraid to do, detach, and build anyway. And as you build, remember this, you are not creating just for today, you are laying down the architecture of a legacy, a life that echoes long after the noise has died down, a presence that cannot be ignored, because it was built on truth, not trends. Detach from the need for validation, detach from applause, detach from the addiction to being seen, liked, or followed, because real power, real wealth, doesn't come from the crowd. It comes from clarity, from knowing who you are when no one's watching, from knowing what you stand for even when it costs you comfort. This is how the few rise while the many wait, because the few have learned to silence the noise and listen to the signal. And the signal is always there if you get still enough to hear it. It whispers in the space between distractions, it calls you when you are no longer ruled by reaction, it shows up when you stop trying to be everything for everyone and finally choose to be fully yourself. You must protect that signal, because the world will always try to pull you away from it. The algorithm, the scroll, the endless need to respond, reply, engage, perform. But the work that changes your life doesn't happen in the comments section, it happens in isolation, it happens in deep focus, in relentless clarity, in silent conviction. The most dangerous man is the one who has nothing controlling him. no addiction to approval, no need to impress, no fear of being alone, no hunger for status. He is free, and therefore, unstoppable. Because when you stop living like a puppet, you start moving like a force that builds, a force that leads, a force that creates the very thing others only dream of. Detach from the calendar of the world, detach from their deadlines for your destiny. You're not late, you're waking up, and once you're awake, you no longer need their clock to tell you when it's time. You decide when it's time, you decide what's possible, you decide who you are, again and again, every single day. The richest people in the world were not always born into it, many were forged in fire. They walked through ridicule, they faced rejection, they stumbled through failure. But they kept going because their why was louder than the world's no. They were detached from the outcome and obsessed with the process. They didn't chase money. They chased mastery, and because of that, money chased them. Don't let this world seduce you with shortcuts. You don't need hacks, you need hunger. You don't need secrets, you need standards. Raise them. Stop playing at the level of average and expecting the results of greatness. Greatness requires detachment. You cannot hold on to who you were and become who you're meant to be. So what are you still clinging to? What idea, what excuse, what old version of you must finally be let go? Because until you release it, your hands are too full to receive what's next. Let it fall, let it burn, let it dissolve, detach, and ascend. And once you've detached from the noise, from the need, from the shallow pull of the external world, what remains is you, not the conditioned version. Not the edited one, but the raw, unshakable, true self, the one that remembers why you started, the one that was never looking for comfort, but for conquest, conquest over self, conquest over weakness, conquest over every limitation the world ever told you was permanent. When you detach, you take back sovereignty, and from that throne, you don't wait for opportunity, you command it. Now is the time to stop asking for permission to rise, stop waiting for someone to discover you. You are not a lottery ticket, you are a weapon being forged in purpose. The mind that is free from control becomes a magnet. It draws people, power, and prosperity. Not because it begs for it, but because it radiates it. That's the paradox. When you no longer need it, when you no longer chase it, when you build with pure intention, wealth flows to you not as a reward, but as a consequence of becoming rare. And what's rare today? Someone who doesn't flinch, someone who doesn't fold, someone who doesn't scroll their way out of focus or fear. Rarity is discipline, rarity is deep work. Rarity is silence when the world screams, and that kind of rare. That kind of you is priceless. Detach from every label you've been given. You're not your past. You're not your failures, you're not their opinion. You're not the numbers, you're not even your own doubts unless you choose to wear them. Detach from the idea that time is slipping away. You're not behind, you're becoming. Detach from the fear of starting over. Every master rebuilt themselves 1,000 times. Carnegie, Disney, Ford, Edison, they failed so many times they ran out of fear. And when fear is no longer driving you, only vision remains, and vision is what moves empires. But you'll never see clearly if your focus is divided. You cannot build an empire with a distracted mind. You cannot become wealthy in a world you refuse to detach from. The formula is simple, but not easy. Detach, decide, dominate, let go of what they expect. Let go of what you used to be. Let go of what feels comfortable but kills your future. This is war, not a war against the world, but a war against inertia, against compromise, against soft thinking, against the addiction to being liked more than being legendary. There's a version of you that terrifies the comfort of others, and you've kept him buried long enough. It's time to unleash him. Let him speak, let him lead, let him walk into the fire while others wait for it to cool, because the truth is, no one's coming to save you. Not your friends. Not your family. Not the algorithm. The only one who can break you out of this prison is the one who built it, and that is the most terrifying and liberating truth of all. Now move like you're already free, move like you've already won, move like you've got nothing to lose and everything to claim. You're not here to fit in, you're here to leave a crater in history, and that only happens when you finally detach from everything that controls you. You were not born to be passive, you were not born to be a background character in the story of your own life, quietly obeying the rules others handed you, buried beneath comfort, smothered by convenience. No, you were born to carve mountains with your will, to rip through the falsehoods that society disguises as truth, and to live wide awake in a world hypnotized by distraction. But you cannot do that if you are still tethered to everything that weakens you. You cannot rise with the weight of artificial validation strapped to your back. You cannot dominate while craving the approval of people who gave up on their own greatness years ago. You must break free, and when you do, when you let Go of needing to be understood, liked, accepted. Something terrifying happens. And something beautiful. You become dangerous, dangerous not in destruction, but in creation. In potential. In power. Because nothing is more dangerous to a system built on obedience than a human being who thinks for themselves, who builds from clarity, who acts from conviction, who moves without waiting. That kind of person? You can't control them, that kind of person? You become that person when you finally stop needing to be anything else, so detach from the addiction to outcome, detach from the illusion of certainty, detach from the fantasy that success should be quick, or easy, or pain-free. It was never meant to be. And that's what makes it worth it, because inside the struggle, inside the resistance, inside the days where no one claps for you, that is where wealth is being forged, not just financial wealth. Spiritual wealth. Mental wealth. Identity wealth. The kind of inner power that no economy, no algorithm, no person can take from you. And once you build that, the external world bends. It follows. It begins to mirror what you've created inside. That is the secret every master eventually learns, that all transformation is internal first. When you finally detach from control, control is exactly what you gain: control of your time, control of your energy, control of your mind, control of your direction, not someone else's, control of your emotions, not the news cycles, control of your worth, not the likes, not the followers, not the money. That is the power you've been giving away. One click, one scroll, one excuse at a time. But now? Now you take it back, and when you take it back, you stop living from reaction and start living from intention. Intentional living is the rarest form of rebellion left in this world. To wake up and choose your path, deliberately, fiercely, with zero compromise, is revolutionary. And no, it will not be easy. It's not meant to be. It's not supposed to feel safe. It's supposed to feel alive. It's supposed to scare the small part of you that still wants to hide. Because freedom comes at a price. Letting go of the illusions that once comforted you, letting go of the identity that kept you liked but not fulfilled. You will lose people. You will lose habits. You will lose versions of yourself. But what you gain clarity, you gain fire, you gain the ability to walk into any room, broke or rich, known or unknown, and own it, because your value doesn't come from them. It radiates from within. That is the wealth of the detached mind. A man or woman who needs nothing controls everything, so detach. Detach from the voice that says you're not ready. Detach from the pain that says you'll never heal. Detach from the timeline that says you're too late. Detach from the comfort that's quietly been killing your ambition, because the only thing more dangerous than failure is being comfortable in mediocrity. You are not meant for average. You are not meant for almost. You are not meant to live the same year 80 times and call it a life. You are meant to burn, to be so on fire with purpose that people cannot look at you without seeing their own reflection and realizing they've been asleep. You are the alarm, you are the interruption, you are the storm that breaks the routine. But only if you choose it. So what's holding you? What still has its hooks in your back? Name it, because until you name it, you cannot kill it, and until you kill it, it controls you. Let it go. Walk away from anything that weakens you. Turn off the voices that never paid the price to build something real, and rise, not slowly. Not someday. But now, you are not late. You are not lost. You are not broken, you are being called, and the call is simple: detach from everything that controls you, so you can finally control yourself. There is a silence you must learn to enter, a sacred stillness beneath all the noise, beyond the dopamine hits of attention, beyond the pressure to keep up, beyond the constant demand to prove yourself. That silence is where wealth begins. Real wealth. The kind that multiplies when no one's watching, because here's the truth: the most powerful decisions are made when the world isn't looking, the most important battles are fought when no one is cheering, and the deepest transformations happen in the dark, where it's just you and your standard, not your goals, not your dreams. Your standard, because that's the foundation. Not what you hope to reach, but what you refuse to fall below. The ones who build legacies don't rise when conditions are perfect. They rise because they demand it of themselves, no matter the condition. Edison didn't wait for comfort. He worked through failure. Disney didn't wait for applause. He built through rejection. Ford didn't ask for permission. He redefined the rules, they detached from external validation, and they attached to a vision no one else could see. That's what you need to do now, because the cost of attachment is clarity, and clarity is the weapon of champions. When your mind is cluttered with comparison, fear, doubt, distraction, you cannot see. You stumble. You hesitate. You become reactive, scattered, lost in 100 directions that are not your own. But when you detach, you begin to see, you see who you are without the noise, you see what you're capable of without the story you've been sold, you see your future, not as a fantasy, but as something you can engineer, moment by moment, decision by decision, with fierce, unwavering precision. That is the power of detachment. You don't lose yourself by letting go. You find yourself, because what's left, once you cut the cord to the fake, is the raw, unshakable truth of who you really are. And if you want wealth, real wealth, you better know who that is. Because money follows clarity, opportunity follows certainty, greatness follows the one who moves without apology, without confusion, without permission. And yes, there will be fear, there will be days when it feels like the old life is calling you back. Days when isolation feels louder than growth. When you wonder if this was all a mistake. When success still feels out of reach and struggle is the only thing that's certain. But let me tell you this. The fear you're feeling, it's a signal. It's not proof you're off track, it's proof you're on it. Because the comfort zone will always scream when you threaten to leave it behind. But you don't negotiate with fear, you wield it. You take that energy and turn it into movement, not random motion, disciplined, directed movement. You get up. You build. You learn. You fail forward. You make something real, and you keep going long after the old version of you would have quit. That is how you earn your future, not by wishing. Not by waiting. But by deciding, right now. In this moment. Before the world changes. Before the doubt creeps in again, decide who you are, and then detach from anything that doesn't align with that. The old habits, the distractions, the crutches, the expectations, the need to be understood, the desire to be liked, you don't need to be liked. Control begins where excuses end. You cannot control everything. You can't control the economy, the weather, the opinion of others, or the setbacks that blindside you at 2 a.m. But there is one domain that is yours. Unshakably, undeniably yours, your response. That's the kingdom you must master, your thoughts, your focus, your actions. This is where the formula begins to work. This is where average ends and abundance starts to take shape. Not in a flash of genius. Not in a lucky break. But in the invisible, repeated, relentless mastery of self. That's the first truth of this path. Mastery over the external world begins with dominion over your internal world. Because what controls your focus? Controls your future, and right now, the world is engineered to steal your focus. Every second. Every scroll. Every headline and highlight and hack. You are being sold your own attention, packaged and resold back to you as distraction, as pleasure, as urgency, but you're not a consumer of noise. You're a creator of destiny, so you must train your focus like a blade, sharp, clean, exact, not scattered. Not multitasked. Precise, and that means living intentionally in a world that thrives on mindless motion. It means saying no more than you say yes. It means turning off the things that drain you, and turning on the things that build you even when they're hard, even when no one claps. Even when it's lonely, because every distraction you eliminate makes space for deeper clarity, and clarity is magnetic. It attracts ideas, people, opportunity, wealth, not the lottery ticket kind of wealth. Not the influencer fantasy. The kind of wealth that sticks, because it's built on real, internal stability, discipline, purpose as vision, and those aren't things you find lying around, you forge them. In the gym at 5 a.m. when it's easier to sleep, in the decision to invest in your skill instead of scrolling through someone else's highlight reel, in the hours spent building instead of wishing, that's where confidence is born, not from mantras or affirmations, but from evidence. The evidence that you did what you said you would do, the evidence that you showed up when it would have been easier not to. That you sacrificed temporary pleasure for permanent power. Confidence isn't an emotion, it's a byproduct. A side effect of consistent, courageous action, and action, real action, only happens when the vision is clear. So let's get clear. What do you really want? Strip away the filters. Take off the mask. Drop the script society handed you. What does your wealthy life look like? Not a borrowed version. Not a copy-paste goal. Your vision. Your empire. Your impact, because if you don't define it, someone else will. And you will end up climbing a ladder that was never yours, building a life that feels like a cage, not a kingdom. That's why vision matters, because vision gives direction to discipline, and discipline turns motion into momentum, and momentum, when sustained, becomes inevitability. But none of that begins until you detach from the mental junk you've been fed since birth, that you're not enough, that success is for the chosen few. That life is supposed to be safe. Small, predictable. No, that's not truth. That's a lie built to keep you obedient, not free. The truth, you were built for greatness, not because it's easy, but because it's earned, and the world will not hand it to you. You must carve it from the raw stone of discipline and belief and sacrifice and sweat. You must decide that average is no longer acceptable, that mediocrity is no longer your identity, and that you will do the work, not for a moment, not for a month, but until the result becomes unavoidable. This is the formula. Not magic. Not mystery. Not manifesting without movement. It's vision plus discipline plus relentless execution, over time, without quitting, without giving your power away, without letting the world's chaos become your inner dialogue. It is the deliberate construction of a future that you take full responsibility for, because when you stop blaming, you start building, and when you stop waiting, you start winning. You are not here to be ruled by circumstances. You are not here to be another echo in a world of noise. You are here to create cause, not react to effect. That's what separates those who lead their lives from those who are led by them. It is easy, so easy, to blame the external, the market, the algorithm, the upbringing, the boss, the ex, the system. And while some of those things may be real, they are not the reason you stay stuck. The real reason is surrender. Not the surrender of peace, but the surrender of power. You handed it over piece by piece every time you said I can't, when you meant I won't. Every time you said someday, when you meant never. Every time you waited for the world to change, instead of becoming the change, but not anymore. You have to reclaim the throne. Not of dominance over others, but of dominion over yourself, because no one's coming to push you, no one's coming to force you to evolve, no one's going to wake you up at 5 a.m., hand you your purpose, and walk you to your destiny. That's your job, and the only way to do it is to detach from everything that tries to win you fear, doubt, validation, comparison, and the slow poison of comfort. Comfort is the drug that convinces you you're fine when you're not. Comfort whispers, you've done enough. But greatness demands, do it again. Comfort says, you deserve a break. But purpose asks, are you done becoming? Comfort lets you off the hook, but destiny puts the pressure on. It demands your evolution. And you either rise, or you repeat. This is why the detachment must be ruthless. Because what controls you, defines you. If fear controls your decisions, fear becomes your identity. If likes and comments and digital applause control your sense of self, you'll become a hollow version of your potential, performative, empty, breakable. But if purpose controls you, if vision drives you, you become unstoppable. That's the only identity worth having, someone on fire with clarity, so burn the false identities. The identity of the victim, the identity of the procrastinator, the identity of the person who used to try. Let them go. You are not your past, you are not your pain. You are what you decide to become in this moment and the next and the next. That's what freedom really is, not the absence of struggle, but the presence of powerful choice, the choice to show up. The choice to move forward when it hurts. The choice to ignore the noise. The choice to detach from everything weak and align with everything strong. It's not an instant flip. It's a battle. Every day, you will be tempted by comfort, pulled by distraction, haunted by the whispers of your lesser self, the one that wants easy, the one that wants fast, the one that wants out. But every time you override that voice, every time you say, no, I am not that anymore, you are casting a vote for your future self. That's what greatness is made of, not grand moments, but repeated decisions in the dark, when no one's watching, when nothing feels certain, when quitting would be easier. But purpose won't let you. This is the price, but it's also the promise, because if you pay that price, if you stay in the fight, stay in the stretch, stay in the becoming, you will wake up one day and realize you are no longer owned by anything, not by fear, not by your bank account, not by the opinions of others, not by the old self who begged for safety. You are free, because you earned your freedom through fire. You walked through every storm, every silence, every season of doubt, and you built yourself anyway. and that's the only kind of success that lasts, not the one handed to you, the one you forged with your sweat, your clarity, your unwavering commitment to not be controlled by anything outside your purpose. This is the formula, and you're living it now, detached from everything that keeps you small. From the scripts you inherited but never questioned. From the roles others cast you in, roles that serve them, not you. You were not born to play a background character in someone else's narrative. You are not here to decorate existence. You are here to reshape it, but you can't reshape the world if you haven't first reshaped your mind, and that's where the real battle lies, not in the economy, not in the marketplace, not in competition. The battlefield is internal. The territory is your mindset. What you believe determines how you behave. And how you behave determines what you become. That's why detachment isn't apathy, it's precision. It's cutting away everything that doesn't move you forward. Trimming the fat from your habits, your thoughts, your relationships. Removing the noise so you can hear your own voice again, that voice, the one buried beneath years of doubt, fear, expectation, that's your compass. You silence it every time you check your phone before checking in with your vision. You weaken it every time you seek approval from the outside instead of authority from within. You betray it every time you choose what's comfortable over what's calling you. But it's still there waiting, ready to roar the moment you stop listening to everything else. You want wealth? You want freedom? You want power? Then you must earn the right to lead yourself. Because here's the truth that most never grasp: wealth is not about money. It's about mindset. It's not about possession, it's about power. The power to act. The power to persist. The power to shape your world, regardless of your starting point. Andrew Carnegie started with nothing. A child immigrant working in a cotton factory. But he didn't stay there because he refused to identify with lack. He refused to be controlled by circumstance. He attached himself to vision and cut everything else loose. Henry Ford failed countless times before building the empire that changed history, but he didn't attach himself to failure. He used it. Every misstep was fuel. Every setback a stone on the path. And Edison? He didn't invent the light bulb. He discovered it through 10,000 versions that didn't work. He detached from ego. Detached from the idea that failure meant stop. To him, failure meant progress. That's what you need, not more motivation, but more mastery of your mindset. You need to become immune to the forces that once shook you. You need to become unavailable to anything that wastes your time. You need to become unshakable in your pursuit, because nothing less will do. This is the process of becoming sovereign. You are not your thoughts, you are the thinker. You are not your past, you are the chooser. You are not what happened to you, you are what you do about it. So cut the strings. Burn the script. Break the chains. Detach from mediocrity like it's a disease. Detach from distraction like it's an addiction. Detach from fear like it's a lie, because it is. And once you do, once the fog clears, you will see what was there all along. The mountain you thought you couldn't climb was built from the doubts you refused to release. The walls you thought confined you were made of beliefs you never challenged. And the door to the life you truly want has always been unlocked. You just had to walk through it. But walking through it requires leaving something behind. Who you were, what you tolerated, what you settled for. You cannot bring small thinking into a big life. You cannot carry excuses into a legacy. You cannot drag old fear into your future and expect it to work. There is no space for both the old you and the new one. One must die so the other can live. So ask yourself, what am I still attached to that is not worthy of my future? What have I convinced myself is normal that is actually enslaving me? What patterns do I keep repeating because they're familiar, even if they're destructive? Answer honestly, because your entire life is shaped by what you are willing to release. Detachment is the art of choosing what gets to stay in your life. And it must be earned every day. It is not a one-time epiphany. It is a discipline, a decision, a declaration. I will not be owned. Not by fear, not by doubt, not by validation, not by limitation. And when you live from that place, when you build your mindset around that code, you become what most never do. Untouchable, because the world can shake, but you stay centered. The market can crash, but you remain focused. They can doubt you, cancel you, ignore you, but you will not break, because your power was never theirs to take. This is detachment, and this is where your real power begins. This is the rebirth, not the kind that happens once in a lifetime. The kind that happens daily. Moment to moment. Every time you choose power over panic, discipline over distraction, truth over comfort, because here's what nobody tells you: comfort is a cage. It's not peace. It's not stability. It's stagnation dressed in soft clothes. It's the slow death of your ambition while you smile and scroll. Detachment is not cold. It's not empty. It's clear. It is the clarity of knowing exactly what you will no longer allow in your life. It is the fierce act of choosing alignment over attachment, and once you taste that clarity, once you stand in the storm and realize you are no longer swayed by it, you don't chase control anymore. You are control. You move like a force. You speak with conviction. You walk into rooms with no need to prove yourself, because your life speaks louder than your voice ever could, and everything changes. People feel it, opportunities recognize it, the world bends to it, because when you detach from the need to get, you gain the capacity to attract. This is the paradox of power: the less you need to control outcomes, the more outcomes obey you, not because of magic, not because of luck, but because of alignment. You are now magnetic, not desperate, focused, not frantic, humble, but uncompromising, and in that state, wealth is no longer some far-off dream, it's a byproduct. A consequence of the inner work you've done. Real wealth begins with self-possession. Owning your thoughts. Owning your time. Owning your energy like it's sacred, because it is. Think about this: how much of your potential have you given away through distraction? Through obligation? Through the illusion that you owe the world your attention more than your destiny. Every time you scroll, every time you complain, every time you indulge the voice of fear, you pay in potential, but now you know the cost, and now you make a different choice. You build a different rhythm, one of radical ownership, one where your morning starts not with noise, but with intent, where you move not from reaction, but from vision, where your mind is not a battlefield of doubt, but a kingdom of clarity. And yes, it will feel lonely at first, because most of the world is addicted to distraction. Most are sedated by comfort, enslaved by their appetites, unconsciously carrying the opinions of others like chains. But you are not most people, you are the exception. You've made a decision most will never make: to wake up, to unplug from the matrix of mediocrity, to turn down the volume of the world so you can hear the sound of your own destiny. Because destiny doesn't shout. It whispers. And it only whispers to those who are still enough, focused enough, hungry enough to hear it. So listen now, hear what it's been trying to say. You are not here to blend in, you are not here to please, you are not here to be liked, followed, or validated. You are here to build, you are here to lead, you are here to transform, but only once you've transformed yourself, and that requires sacrifice, the sacrifice of ego, the sacrifice of victimhood, the sacrifice of the easy road, because true power, real wealth, is never found on the path of least resistance. It's found where resistance meets resolve. The stronger the resistance, the greater the refinement. Pressure is not your enemy, it is your invitation to rise, to sharpen, to become the kind of person who can carry the weight of the life you claim to want. So don't run from pressure. Run toward it, lean into discomfort like it's your personal trainer. Let it sculpt you. Let it stretch you. Let it strip away the layers that no longer serve who you're becoming. That's detachment. It's not about rejecting the world, it's about transcending it. And when you do, when you fully let go of everything that owns you, you step into a rare kind of freedom. The freedom to think clearly, the freedom to move deliberately, the freedom to create not from fear, but from fire, the fire of purpose, the fire of self-mastery, the fire of knowing exactly who you are, what you're here for, and what you will not tolerate another day. And from that fire, you forge a new world, not just for yourself, but for everyone your life will touch. That is your responsibility now. That is the standard. Detach from everything that controls you, and become the one who controls what happens next. Let me know when you're ready to continue. There is a moment in every life where you stop asking for permission, where you stop waiting for a green light, an invitation, or a perfect plan, where you realize no one is coming to save you, and that realization doesn't scare you, it liberates you, because finally, the illusion is shattered. The illusion that success is a matter of luck. That fulfillment is something given. That purpose is something found. No purpose is forged. Success is engineered. Fulfillment is the natural outcome of full alignment with who you were born to become. But it only starts when you stop dancing for the world and start walking through it with head high, soul still, and a vision unshakable. That's what detachment gives you. It gives you yourself back. It gives you the space to stop reacting and start architecting, to stop being a product of your environment and start becoming a creator of it. No more numbing. No more noise. No more negotiating with mediocrity. The world doesn't need more people living on autopilot. It needs more people who are awake, truly awake, awake to the power of now. Awake to the miracle of effort. Awake to the infinite resource of the human mind when it's not distracted by triviality. You want wealth? Stop chasing it like prey. Become the kind of person who attracts it. Become disciplined with your time. Ruthless with your focus. Grateful with your struggle. Because the version of you that has everything you dream of is already waiting. But you can't meet that version while still clinging to who you've been. You have to burn that version. You have to let the identity that was built on insecurity and need and attachment die so the true self can rise. Do you think Edison created the light bulb from comfort? Do you think Carnegie built his empire because he was lucky? Do you believe Lincoln withstood the weight of a nation because he was ordinary? No. These men, and every giant that followed, were forged in fire. They didn't run from the chaos. They stepped into it. They didn't pray for ease, they developed fortitude. Mental steel. Emotional gravity. Spiritual firepower. They detached from the world long enough to define it, and so must you. You must become a spiritual engineer, not just building a career, but constructing a consciousness that bends the material world around it. And to do that, you must leave behind the hunger for validation, you must leave behind the craving for applause, you must leave behind the desperation to be seen, because here's the truth. The people who change the world never beg for attention. They are too busy building the thing that earns it. Let others obsess over likes, follows, and applause. You? Obsess over vision. Over execution. Over becoming the person that future generations will study. Not for your fame, but for your impact, because true detachment isn't about isolation, it's about invincibility, not a cold indifference, but a burning clarity. A state where you no longer bend for anything that doesn't serve your highest mission, where your energy is preserved like treasure. Your time guarded like gold. Your thoughts filtered through fire, only the strongest allowed to remain. That's how you become dangerous in the best way. That's how you rise from the ranks of the average to the rare, not by fitting in, but by tuning in. Tuning into that inner voice, deeper than ego, stronger than fear, wiser than the noise. And when you live from that place, you become unstoppable. People will notice, but you won't care. They'll ask your secret, but you won't have one, because it won't be a trick. It will be a way of being. You will radiate strength. Not because of what you have, but because of what you no longer need. That is detachment, and that is freedom. And when you finally understand this, when it sinks not just into your mind, but into your bones, the world changes, not because it became easier, but because you became stronger. This is what every master before you has discovered. What every legend has lived. They learned to separate the signal from the noise. They learned to turn down the volume of the world and turn up the voice within. They stopped giving energy to things that drained them and started giving life to the things that mattered. It's not the million tasks that create success, it's the right ones, done with relentless consistency, fueled by belief, sharpened by focus, and detached from outcome. When Ford was told he couldn't build an 8-cylinder engine in a single block, he didn't argue. He commanded. Do it anyway. Not because he had proof it would work, but because his will was stronger than their doubts. That is what detachment looks like in action, a man so locked into his vision that the impossible bends before him. And you must be the same. You must become so committed to your higher purpose that nothing external can seduce you off your path, because the moment you chase approval, you lose alignment. The moment you depend on praise, you lose power. The moment you need comfort more than you crave growth, you stop ascending. Detachment is not about being emotionless. It's about being emotionally disciplined. It's knowing the fire is inside you, not around you. It's waking up each day with this vow in your spirit: I will not be moved by noise. I will not be shaken by shadows. I will not bow to fear, failure, or false validation. I know who I am. I know what I'm building. And I do not need the world to understand. That mindset? That is the edge. That's how you tap into the invisible current that pulls the extraordinary from the ether into reality. It's how Disney built dreams out of dirt. how Lincoln stitched a divided nation together through storms of blood and thunder, how Carnegie turned steel into a stairway to the sky. It wasn't luck. It was certainty. Not in circumstance, but in self, the average person waits for the right conditions to believe. The exceptional believe first and create the conditions later, because belief is a force. When anchored to purpose and forged in discipline, it becomes gravity. It pulls results toward it. It makes others take notice. It makes reality reconfigure itself around the intensity of your intent, but it all starts with detachment. Let go of the timeline. Let go of the how. Let go of the obsession with being seen. The universe does not reward noise, it rewards alignment, and that alignment starts in silence, it grows in solitude, and it roars through action, the kind done not for applause, but for destiny. This is the path, and every time you forget it, come back here. Come back to the fire. Come back to the reason you started. Come back to the version of you who was done with mediocrity and finally ready to rise, not to prove anything to anyone, but to prove something to yourself, that you were never meant to be controlled, you were meant to create, to shape, to lead, to walk through the noise, not be consumed by it, to speak less and build more, to expect more and tolerate less, to carry the weight of your vision like a crown, not a burden. Detach from everything that weakens you and reconnect to everything that awakens you.